Alright, we can start. Hi everyone, my name is Paweł. For a quick background, I used to be a Java developer, but then I migrated to the dark side, and now I'm taking care of several teams of developers and DevOps folks at Xibia Poland. Today I will tell you a story about fighters, bards, druids and wizards in our industry and how to deal with them. Alright, this is our agenda. Our agenda kind of resembles the agenda of a manual for a role-playing game, like old school paper role-playing game. Alright, we'll do a 3 passes over our characters. This is going to be a 3-pass presentation. Right? We start with the first pass, the introduction to our 4 characters, just a brief introduction. Then there is the chapter called often mechanics, so I will explain why I have chosen those particular 4 characters, a little bit of science behind this. Then we'll do a second pass, so we'll dive a little bit deeper into our character classes, the advantages, the disadvantages, examples from popular culture. Then there is also always often the chapter called the role-playing manual, right? How to play the role-playing game, how to play the game of communication. So this is going to be our third pass over our characters in this presentation. And at the end, a little bit of advanced mechanics. Sometimes it's called miscellanea. If you don't know how to call the last chapter of the presentation, you can call it miscellanea. So we'll talk about a few additional topics. Alright, so let's start with our first pass over our characters. So we will start with a red fighter. I will be using colors interchangeably with class names. We'll get to the reason for that later. The second disclaimer, usually in role-playing games you have a set of attributes such as strength, agility, right, intelligence, charisma, etc. And it's often the case that each class has one main primary attribute. It's based on one of those attributes, right? So for our red fighter, it will be strength. Like our fighters are strong. They like to get close. They like to go to the battlefield and hack and slash orcs and goblins. They can go to Gyra and hack and slash tasks and items there. They can take a lot of damage. They can deal a lot of damage. Our second character is the yellow bards. Right? Bards are based on charisma. Right? They have the supporting role in a team. They add this aura of morale +2 to the morale of the team. They are master communicators. They're like the face of the team. They can get the team anything, they can talk to anyone. Our third character would be our green druid. Right? Druids are based on perception but also wisdom. Right? They also have this supporting role in the team, but more from the healer protector side of things. And our last but not least character is our blue wizard. The wizard is based on the raw intelligence, right? Wizards like to keep a little bit in a distance. They are kind of ranged characters, but they can also do a lot of damage and they know a lot of stuff. So what are we going to do here? We'll talk about general communication, right? Whether this is one-on-one, some larger meetings, sending an emails, preparing a presentation, a slide for a presentation, stuff like this. A general approach to those 4 types of characters. What are their strengths and also what are the weaknesses or shadows. Right, so let's dive a little bit into the background of all that. So basically, since millennia, we had this idea that certain people have different types of personality, right? Some people were like air, or like fire, or they were stable as a rock, or flowing like water. Like in different cultures, sometimes there are some allegories to animals as of types of characters. And basically, you might be familiar with the theory from 2,500 years by Hippocrates and later Galen, that depending on the ratio of certain fluids in our body, we have different types of personality, right? Whether you have more blood or bile or something else. We have this choleric, phlegmatic, sanguinic types of characters. Then around 100 years ago, Walter Clark wrote a book about those 4 types of characters. And about 10 years ago, there was a book by Thomas Erickson, Surrounded by Idiots, right? Catchy title. And Thomas was using those names, those colors, instead of course, character classes. So there was this red, yellow, green, and blue that we'll be using sometimes interchangeably. So let's imagine that we have two dimensions of our personality, right? That's the first dimension. Let it be energy, whether we are introverts or extroverts, right? We kind of have an intuition for that. If you are an introvert, you are a little bit shy, don't want to have that many people and loud people around you. You have lower energy. If you are extrovert, you have a lot of energy, you act before you think, stuff like this, right? Lots of idea, get stuff done, right? Often the center of attention. So this is our one dimension. The second dimension would be our focus, whether we are focused on people, interesting in relation, making everyone feel okay, etc., etc., or whether we are focused on tasks, on getting things done, right? On algorithms, on technicalities, stuff like this, right? So this is our second axis of our personality that we will be looking into today. And now, when we apply this to a grid, we have actually our four classes, right? We have our red fighter, who is focused on tasks, getting stuff done, and extroverts, a lot of energy, action, right? We have our yellow druid, who is also extrovert, but interested in people, partying, what's going on, small talk, stuff like this, all right? We have our green druid, who is also focused on people and other living things, but more on the quiet introvert side, right? A little bit less energy there. And we have our blue wizard, who is also not that much of energy, not that another energetic person on the introvert side, but focus on tasks, right? On formalities, tasks, stuff like this. So this is the idea of our four characters. It might look familiar to you. So indeed, there is a theory called DISC about four types of personalities that became prominent in 60s and 70s, the previous century. The shortcut, the acronym from dominance, influence type, steadiness type, and conscientiousness, orderly type, right? And types of personality, of course, doesn't determine our behavior all the time. So those are our, let's say, core values and attitudes. Our personality basically is shaped in our first 20 levels, right? So our first 20 of our life, our upbringing, and also depends on our character creation roles, right? So what kind of nervous system we randomize from the genetic lottery. This shapes mostly our personality, but then it changes a little bit later. But anyway, our personality is our core values, our attitudes towards what we would prefer, our preferences, right? But on the other hand of our behavior, there's the environment, right? So depending on the situation, whether you are under stress or you just went out of heavy metal concert or maybe from a church, you would behave differently. So there are some external factors, all right? Also, keep in mind that this is just one of the models. There are plenty models of personality. We have 4 types of personalities, 8, 6, 16. We have the big 5 with 5 different, not correlated with each other, different scales not correlated with each other, right? We have some models for strengths and weaknesses. We have some models for team roles, right? And all models, as the saying goes, are false, but some of them are useful, right? This is the same as with role-playing systems, right? There's a lot of systems, a lot of ideas, a lot of mechanics. We love some of them, we hate some of them. The list is different depending on who you ask. So this is similar with the models of personality. Don't get very religious about this. This is just one of the models. All right. Now, keep hydrated, this is important. Let's move to our second pass over our character classes. So a little bit of deep dive. So starting with our red fighter again, the dominant type according to DISC, extroverted and focused on people, right? Focused on, on tasks, not on people. And superpowers of fighters are effective, they are very determined, they get stuff done basically. It's easy to make decision based on incomplete data for them, they're very decisive, they're fearless, they can go to the battle, fight with the dragon or the CTO or the CFO in the company. They are often very ambitious. However, there are some weak sides or shadows of a fighter. So they tend to be a little bit stubborn. They know how to do things their way, and their way is the only way, and your way is the wrong way, right? I try to convince them otherwise. They might be a little bit pushy, like rough around the edges, right? A little bit destructive. When they charge into the battle, they sometimes trample their allies along the side, right? And if you need to discuss with them about how to do something, you should be prepared for some tough discussions. In technology, we all know this type of hero, right? There's this one programmer who can do the half work of the whole sprint for all the people in one night, just force push it, and it even seems like it's working, right? At least the green path is working. Maybe it's not the best code, maybe it's not the very well tested code, maybe there's no documentation or something, but well, a lot of job is actually done, right? They can write a lot of lines of code in a very short time. When they use some frameworks or libraries, they use stuff that get the job done, right? They excel at the crisis situation when the production is on fire, right? Everything is shutting down, then the red fighter can, make hard decision, maybe execute the difficult SQL query or SQL query, depending on the tribe you're in, that everyone else is afraid to run on the production, right? And save the day, basically. This is the ideal situation, like a risky situation, so risky deployment, manual deployment, stuff like this. And when we are in some estimation situation, then the fighter will probably give you a lower estimate because they are quite sure that they can do it faster than others, and they probably can to some extent, right? Moving on to our examples of fighters from popular culture. Not sure if there's anyone of you who doesn't know any of those 6 characters, those 6 franchises. I hope not. If there is, then you have a homework to do. Alright, so we have Daenerys from Game of Thrones. Daenerys, especially in the later part of the show, is focused on getting the Iron Throne, getting her way, right? She can do anything that's necessary to do this. Monica from Friends wants to have everything done her way, right? Basically, when they're working on the furniture in the apartment, she's very competitive when there is the situation when they play the basketball in the backyard. She doesn't care that somebody gets hurt, break a leg or something. She just cares to win, right? We have Gimli. What happens when we are at the castle at Elrond's, right? Everyone is debating what to do with the ring. Should we cast it in the mouth of the fires of Mount Doom, right? Or do some elvish magic, maybe. What Gimli does, just goes there and tries to smash the ring with his hammer, his axe, to be precise, right? We have Bernadette, a very small person with a powerful voice that she uses to get what she wants, right? We have Dwight, wants to be from the office, who wants to be the assistant manager, not the assistant to the manager. That's very important, okay? And we have Lord Vader. If Lord Vader does not approve of something, he will just choke you with the Force, right? So those are our examples of red fighters. Moving on to our yellow bards. Yellow bards, influential type, extrovert, focused on people, okay? Some bardic powers, they are inspirational, they have this charisma, this aura of optimism. We can do this, we can do that, it will be awesome, there's a great idea, some grand vision. They are very charming, creative, they excel at, finding some unusual ways to connect stuff that doesn't usually connect, and they are master communicators. They can basically talk to anyone and get you stuff done just by talking. Of course, there are some shadows to that. Sometimes they are a little bit egoistic, they are focused on themselves, right? If they are in the room, they tend to take all the air, to suck all the air from the room, a bit overwhelming for other people. They are also very interesting in new stuff, so they see some new shining stuff, they will just go there, leave what they were doing behind, so a little bit undisciplined. Someone else has to clean the mess after them, stuff like this, okay? How does it translate to technology, to our industry? To any kind of shiny things, right? Any new library. Hey, there is a new framework, JavaScript framework on the front end this week. We should rewrite everything that we have to just check it if it's cool, right? Great idea. There's a new project, right? So if there's one project, another project, the Bards will just interested in a new project. They are not very good with routine. They have to write like 10th the same endpoint or similar piece of documentation, basically lose the bar there. But they are great if you need to sell your team, right, to the other part of the company, to other teams, maybe to some business. So they are great if you need to do a flashy sprint demo, if you need to send people to conferences, to sit at the booth for 8 hours and talk to programmers, recruit them, give away rubber ducks with the company logo, stuff like this. Right? So great developer advocates, and they are the great interface for your team. Right? They know everyone at the company. They know HR, they know admins, DevOps, developers, managers. They spend a lot of time with the coffee machine at the canteen, and they can actually get you some stuff done just by knowing what other teams are doing and who's who in the company. And if you get stuff done without writing a code, that's basically 0 bugs. So this is a great idea. Some examples. So we have Tyrion from Game of Thrones. You might think at first that Tyrion is an intellectual, right? Because, well, on the other hand, we can always see him with a cup of wine in his hand, right? He's the party man. Right? He's the master communicator. He can talk to anyone, whether this is a king on the Iron Throne, whether this is a chieftain of some hill tribe, or maybe some half-wit guard at prison, right? We have Chandler, the comic relief with his great sarcastic humor and friends, right? We have Pippin, Lord of the Rings. It's kind of like a Bard in Lord of the Rings. This comic relief and this lightweight character. We have Penny from the Big Bang Theory. So Penny has a lot of charisma, and she can use this charisma to get what she wants. Right? We have Michael. Michael has a lot of people energy. He's here, he's there, he's this idea, that idea. Right? Not necessarily very good ideas. Often, but you can't deny him having people energy. And we have Han from Star Wars, of course. So Han is like a classic rogue swashbuckler, right? He often gets in trouble, but he's also able to talk himself out of those trouble. All right, so those are our yellow Bards examples. Moving on to our green druids, so the stable type, introverted, focused on people and or other living stuff. So superpowers of druids. Druids can shape-shift into bears or werewolves often, right? But they are very reliable and stable team members, right? You can count on them. They will support other people from the team who have some kind of trouble. If you need some review, if you need to get somebody unstuck, etc., they will just drop anything and go there to help. They are very observant, so they see what's happening often under the surface, right? Under the surface, so they are really seeing things, and they are great at resolving conflicts. When they enter a room, there was an argument before, they can immediately feel that something is off and help to resolve that. So this seems like a very positive person, right? Just advantages, but on the other hand, there are some shadows to druids. So druids tend to be stubborn, but in a different way than fighters, right? Fighters just have their idea of doing stuff, and this is the only correct way. Your way is wrong. And druids are more like, yeah, we're doing this like that for years. This was working. Quite change it. Doesn't make sense. Let's just leave it. So they tend to, cling to the status quo, right? They tend to get a little bit stuck in things. This might lead to being undecisive. They have difficulty making decisions based on incomplete data, right? And also because they are helping other team members often, they get a little bit behind with their own work, right? Tasks and Jira, stuff like this. So this might lead to some kind of overwork, over hours, maybe some burnout and issues like this. So in technology, solid and proven team members, like they are using also solid and proven technology, sometimes even too proven, reach the security risk, like something like this. If you need anybody to do a code review, to do a pair programming, to onboard a newbie in a team, right, to unblock someone, to help with something, then Druid is basically your person there to go. If we are in some estimation situation or refinement, then Druid will probably give you a little bit higher estimate because they just want to be sure that everything will be done on time. And our examples. I have Jon Snow. Jon Snow is the man of honor. He always takes care of his men, his people. We have Rachel, who is like this stabilizing factor. She's actually the opposite of Monica, basically, which is kind of funny because you can notice with TV series with ensemble casts, it's often the case that you have all types of characters, right? The opposites, because this creates some interesting action, some interesting conflict. And they even put the opposites in the same apartment to make it even more fun. Right? We have Frodo, who also takes care of his friends, very stable. We have Leonard, who is, you know, the Big Bang Theory is generally skewed towards this wizardy blue type, right? Because it's a series about geeks, about nerds, basically. But Leonard is like the most, let's say, normal person in that group, right? He's like the social glue, despite what Sheldon says. Leonard is the social glue that holds this group together. We have Pam from the office on the reception, also like a good spirit of the office, basically. And we have Luke, the protagonist, the light force, taking care of his friends. So those are our examples of the green druids. Moving on to our blue wizards, so conscientiousness, order, introversion, focused on tasks. Superpowers of wizards, they are very analytical, methodical, precise, right? Diligent, thoughtful. They think about everything that can go wrong. They are always prepared, right? They are never late. But also, wizards have some shadows, right? They are a bit rigid, about cold, emotional. They are like a little bit of killjoy, right? What does it mean? So imagine you have this situation. There comes the yellow Bard with a new idea, right? The Bard says, "Hey, let's do this. We will be doing this screen. There will be a pop-up. There will be 2 buttons here. We will create an event, save it in this database, send an email. User will see this. We'll click this, and great idea. Let's do this. Okay, great, cool." And then comes the wizard and says, "Have you thought about GDPR? You cannot store credit card numbers in this database. It won't work." And all the joy is basically killed, right? Wizards are often perfectionists, right? They will give you a beautiful system, but it will come at a price and time. So in technology, there are great people to do a research, to create some proof of concept, to compare certain frameworks and technologies. Maybe we should write something from scratch, for instance, right? Great idea. They are great at analyzing complex processes, right? Finding some loopholes, some corner cases. They are great at finding what can go wrong. They make great QAs, testers, because they always think about what can go wrong, what are some uncommon uses of the software, right? And also they often focus on stuff that is a bit neglected usually by developers, not that sexy, like stuff like security, compliance, documentation, or perhaps other boring stuff. So the NFRs, non-functional requirements, right? Wizards tend to think about this, not only this making software that works on the green path. And our examples, we have Varys from Game of Thrones, the Master of Whispers, right? Varys is there somewhere in the shadows, right? He's not very emotional. He's cold, calculating, looking from the backstage, right? We have Ross, the scientist. So there's an interesting dynamic between Ross and Phoebe about theories of creationism and evolution, right? Phoebe is like, yeah, anyone can choose their own theory, it's just a theory, whatever works, right? And Ross is, what? Evolution is not a theory, it's a fact, it's a scientific fact. But we can see this attachment of wizards to facts, logic, and data, right, in this episode. There are several scenes between them, and Ross is trying to convince Phoebe that this is the only way, right? They just defend logic, facts, and data they are attached to. Switching franchises a little bit, we have Hermione, so classic know-it-all, sitting in the first line when teacher is asking, I know. We have Sheldon, the classic mad scientist, so brilliant theoretical physicist, but has no idea how to deal with people, basically, right? We have Angela, an accountant, very precise, cold, but people don't really like to work with her that much. She's a bit harsh. And C3PO, so he's great when you have to calculate the probability of a ship inside a meteor field to get out safely, which is very low, but it doesn't really help people that are piloting this ship at this very moment. those are our examples of blue wizards. Moving on, we have our third pass over our characters. So the role-playing manual, how to play the game of communication. Okay, so starting with our fighter. Fighters want to get the job done, right? They are effective. They are to the point. So basically, if you meet with them, you should have an agenda. You should have a goal for this meeting. You should have some points to discuss, not just chit chat about your dog and your cat and etc. Right? So basically, warriors, fighters are focused on that. Whenever you are preparing some presentation, for instance, sending an email, don't do a great introduction, don't paint a grand visions, don't attach a lot of data. You will lose the fighter. You need points, you need stuff, what to be done, right? If you have fighter on the meeting, then basically it might be a nice idea to just keep the fighter for a part of this meeting, to discuss what you need from the fighter, and then just let him go hug the orcs and goblins on the battlefield on his own, right? And you can continue with the meeting, but don't waste fighters' time, right? Fighters, basically all types of checklists work quite well, right? So if whether this is a backlog or some to-do list, etc., something that can be moved from left to right or checked that this is done. Fighters don't like wasting resources, whether this is time or cloud resources or whatever. So just keep this in mind. Whenever there is a discussion, right, it might be tricky to convince fighters to doing stuff differently. So you might get at the stalemate point. You might have to feel this moment when you just have to give up and let them do their stuff, because at some point you might get stuck. But don't do this at start, because you can just lose the respect of the fighter. Just try to defend your view a little bit, and then maybe look for the moment to give up if it's really needed at some point. All right, and remember that sometimes decisions can be made quickly with fighters. So maybe you go to fighter just to discuss something, to get an opinion, but the result is a decision made, a commit to production, right? Deployment to production, commit to master, or maybe a ticket created for admins, right? Which you didn't really expect before this meeting. So be prepared for such situation. So those are our red fighters. Moving on to our yellow bards. So for bards, it's a bit opposite with time, right? So the relation, the small talk, the stuff like this is very important, right? You have to get to know the bard to get some business done, right? Talk about the dog, talk about the cat, etc. Right? About the energy level in general, this is a general tip. If you have a person you are speaking to have a different energy level, the different level of introversion, extraversion, try to match this level just a little bit, right? It might be tricky if you are very introverted, you are talking to a very extroverted person. Maybe try to add a little bit energy to your voice. Speak a bit louder. If it's the opposite, you are extrovert, person you are speaking to is an introvert, then maybe you just try to shut up for a moment and listen, right? It's difficult to meet in the middle, to make those levels equal. Usually if you're very different, but just try to get a little bit closer. It will help you, right? Okay, getting back to our bard. So bards operates maybe not necessarily on logic and data, but on feelings, on grand vision, stuff like this. So if you need some opinion from the bard, you can look them straight into eyes and ask, what do you think about, what do you feel about this? What's your gut feeling, right? And it resonates with bard a little bit better than logic and arguments sometimes. Right, so bards are keen on all types of grand overviews, great visions, right? We'll be doing this, that. We'll be this company in 5-10 years. We'll conquer the world, right? They like to have fun at work. So work is, not just a sad place you go to make stuff and earn money, but it can be really fun and cool and cozy, right? And bards like to feel important, not necessarily like decision making important, but they like to feel included. They like to sit at the table where some decisions are made. Like so think about including them in various activities, decision making, stuff like this. And they are your shining stars in the team, basically. So let them shine, make sure that everyone else in the company knows what they are doing. Probably they already do, but let them do their thing. Alright, so our yellow bards. Moving on to our green druids. Alright, so for druids, trust is very important. Trust, partnership, safety. Druids have this built-in bullshit detector, so don't try to bullshit the druid. They will know. They will know, and you will just lose your points. Doesn't make sense, right? They should be sincere, should provide them safety, right? They like to support others and provide safety. You should provide safety to them as a team leader, as a manager, as a good colleague. And they like predictability, right? So don't rush things. There's a great scene in Big Bang Theory about throwing a fish into the tank of water, right? It's actually said by Sheldon, but it kind of applies that you don't just throw a fish in a tank. You just put the fish gently on the surface of the water, right? And let the fish sink in, fill the water, etc. Right? Similar with druids, right? If there is some kind of difficult news in the company, for instance, if there is a change in leadership, if you are a leader, if you are giving people away to somebody else, maybe don't announce this on a big meeting or I don't know via email. Just talk to a druid one-to-one, drop the bomb one-to-one, ask how they feel about this, if they're afraid of something, if they would like to discuss, if they need more time, etc. Right? So think about this predictability. Right? Sometimes druids are defending the status quo and they are losing this vision, this clarity of goals. So it's good to remind them, right? What are we doing here? What's the reason, the business reason behind all of that? Druids like to support others and they like to be supported as well, especially with decision making. They might be stuck in decision making. So just talk to them, ask what they feel about this, what are they afraid of, what are the blockers, etc. Try to negotiate. Don't push them too much, right? Let's be gentle. And one of the most important things, maybe the most important thing about druids, they often tend to do this kind of work called the glue work, right? This is the work that is not very visible. They are just helping people around, making sure everything is going smoothly. It's usually not in Jira as a task, right? So they might be a little bit behind with their own tasks. They might have the feeling that they are not very efficient, effective, but make sure that they know that what they are doing is very important for the team, right? It actually allows team to work well. If you remove the druid from the team, it might be the case that you lose like the work power of 3 people because nothing is working very well in the team, right? So make sure they're aware that they are really needed. So this is about our green druids. Moving on to our wizards, right? So for wizards, time, facts, data, logic, details, all of the stuff is very important. When you are preparing some presentation, sending an emails, make sure you will add all of those charts, graphs, additional data, sources, links, Excel files, stuff like this, right? Be prepared, right? Wizards are always prepared. You should be prepared too, a little bit at least, right? Be prepared that there will be a lot of questions. They will need to know the details, right? The details of the details, a list of questions to the questions, etc. At some point it might get a little bit annoying, right? But wizards are just like this. They want to get to the truth and know all the details. About punctuality. So wizards have this very structured work, including time. Right, so they are of course very punctual. The wizard is never late, or is he early, arrives precisely on time. So if you are late to the meeting with a wizard, you are losing time from the beginning, right? So try to avoid this. About deadlines and requirements, wizards are perfectionists, right? If you need a car and tell the wizard that you need a car, you will get a Ferrari, right? If you wanted Fiat Panda or something like this, you should have said so, right? So be precise about what you exactly require, what is the time budget for this. Otherwise, you will have a perfect, beautiful system, but it will be too late and too expensive, right? With decisions, wizards operate on the logic data, right? So when you need to make a decision, just talk to them, ask questions, answer questions, and you will arrive on some results. Don't pressure them too much. About meetings and moderation. So basically, when you are in a meeting with a wizard and there is some Bard around there as well, taking all the space, make sure to moderate a little bit. So from time to time, you can say, "Hey, Gandalf, what do you think about this?" right? And Gandalf will tell you some very important stuff that otherwise he might have just keep it to himself because there was no space to start talking, for instance, right? Okay. So those are our blue wizards. Let's move on to our last chapter of our adventure today. The advanced sections or the miscellanea. So at this point, you might have an idea which type you are, right? Of which type are your colleagues, friends at work. Or it might be the opposite. It doesn't resonate with you very well. You are somehow in between. It doesn't work very well. Both are fine. Both are okay. Right. So first of all, everyone is different, right? We are all individuals, right? We have different traits, different perks, different skills, etc., different personality, and there are different types of fighters, for instance, or wizards. We can, call it a specialization or subclasses when we are in the role-playing games theme, right? Aside from that, we have this mechanism called multi-classing, right? So usually it turns out in the Erickson book there is a statistics that actually most people have two classes, right? One is more dominant, the other might be less a little bit, but usually people have two classes. Some people have three classes. There's not a lot of people that have just one very sharp class, right? Very, very specific. Can you have four classes? Not really. We are not that super agile and fluent that we don't have any preferences, to be honest. So let's say the rules say that you can't have all four classes at once. You can have only three, right? When you think about two people working on a task like pair programming or something, some characters work a little bit better with each other because they are in the similar place on one of those two scales, right? So for instance, the fighter and the wizard could work well because they are both focused on tasks, right? The druids and the wizards might work well on the emotional level. They are more introverted, right? And it matches nicely. Whereas it's a bit tricky if you have opposites, right? Opposite type of character, like the fighter and the druid, right? They are very different. So it's tricky if you move them to the same task, if they work on the same task very closely. There's possibility of conflict there, but it's great to have both of them in the team for the broader discussion, right? In general, if you have diverse teams with different types of characters, and the team is stronger, right? We are in the situation where the world is changing very quickly, it's very chaotic, it's very complex, right? We are just discovering what we are doing on the go. But basically, for that, we need teams with full autonomy and full skill set to do everything that they need, whether this is some complicated analysis or selling the idea. And if you have all the types of characters, then the chance of success is much better, right? Now let's imagine that we are having an activity, a task. We are organizing an integration. We want to go for some beer, have fun, have an integration in our team. So how this might look like from our perspective of our characters? It probably starts with a bard, right? The bard comes, hey, we'll go for a beer. I have this great idea. I know this place, or actually three places. I know bartenders there. I can get us a discount, right? Great. Okay, let's do it. Maybe next week. Great idea. Okay, cool. Now there comes wizard, and wizard will prepare some details. So he will create an Excel sheet or a doodle or something for everyone, so they can mark the dates when they are available actually, or they are available but would prefer not to. Maybe some other dates. So the strength of the preference, for instance, they can calculate the perfect date, right? They will create a placeholder in a calendar, and they will send an email, etc. So all the details, right? Then we have the druid. Druid will make sure that everything is okay, everyone feels good. So if we have this vegan friend, druid will make sure that we are going to a place where they have some nice vegan option, just French fries and water. Right, if somebody has too much to liquor at the end of our party, druid will make sure to get the person to the Uber or a cab or something and get back home safely. Right, and at the end, if there is a draw, we can decide on the date or a place. Then we have fighter. Fighter will make a decision for us, and fighter will lead us in an assault on the pub. All right. And then what happens if we are missing anyone in our team, right? If we miss the fighter, there's nobody to make those brave decisions, right? If you miss the wizard, then there's nobody to take care of all those tiny details to make sure that we have everything covered, right? If we don't have the bard, we don't have this great inspiration and creative energy and this fun in the team. And if we miss the druid, well, it might be the case that we don't really have a team anymore, just a random set of individuals that are going in different random directions. All right. So we arrived at the end of this presentation, guys. This is the contact data for me. This QR code leads to my LinkedIn, so you are welcome to join the party to do a virtual high five. Right? I'm also on Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called now, and on the Instagram there are some. If you like the images in this presentation, the Midjourney generated these are a bit smarter. If you want to have notes from this presentation, I got 2 articles on how to train your java.com. It's not, don't worry, it's not about Java anymore, to be honest. I just didn't change the name of the blog, but it's more about general software development and peopleware. Right? So there are 2 articles about types of developers, and also there is this presentation itself available, and also some recordings from conferences and stuff if you would like to share with anyone. Right, folks. Take care of each other. Take care of people around you. Thank you very much for your attention. Thanks.